Welcome and good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this AIST Foundation webinar focused on steel internships during COVID-19. My name is Ron Ashburn. I'm the Executive Director for AIST. That's the Association for Iron and Steel Technology. And like many of you, I'm currently working from home here in Pittsburgh, United States, together with my AIST colleagues and many of our members as well. But we continue to fulfill AIST's mission to advance the technical development, the production, processing, and application of iron and steel. Our objective today is to share insights for steel industry internship and co-op programs, and in particular, how these programs are being impacted by COVID-19. In the past, the steel industry has made the mistake of cutting internships and recruiting budgets during economic downturns. From the perspective of the universities and even more so the students, skipping just 1 year of recruiting usually requires 3 more years to rebuild the confidence in our industry as a viable career path for the next generation. And perhaps the COVID-19 crisis can actually help us break free from this cycle as companies become more creative to maintain engagement and to overcome COVID-related challenges when it comes to our recruiting efforts. Joining us today are panelists from several steel-related companies throughout North America as we aim to share ideas for alternative internship and co-op programming in the COVID-19 era. We're also glad that everyone online today, wherever you may be, has taken the time to join us. We look forward to your input on how AIST may be able to help overcome your steel-related challenges. I do want to give a special shout out to AIST President Ron O'Malley from the Missouri University of Science and Technology. Ron, I hope you're out there and thank you for joining us, and I'm glad to be with everyone today. Before we get started, a few housekeeping issues. First up, the AIST policy for antitrust compliance. For our panelists, please take note of these guidelines on the screen, and we'll make sure to hold our conversation in compliance as we do for this and any AIST program. So we appreciate your attention to those rules. In addition, I would like to point out that our event is being recorded today. Now, to introduce our panelists, our featured guests today include Morgan Ferguson, Human Resources Generalist from Steel Dynamics. We have Mark Brooks, Talent Acquisition at Nucor. We have Joanne Royce, Talent Acquisition Lead for Campus North America with Hatch. Also joining her from Hatch is Ian Cameron, Principal Metallurgist Ferris. We have Karen Arnold, the Manager for Talent Acquisition at AK Steel. And James Salisbury, who's the Associate Director of Recruiting and Employer Relations at the Colorado School of Mines. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. And before we get started with our question and answer period, I'd like to give a little background about the AIST Foundation. It is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it has the unique mission to ensure the iron and steel industry of tomorrow will have a sufficient number of qualified professionals. And the foundation goes about its business by funding a variety of programs. These programs can include our student membership, which currently has more than 5,000 university engineering students from all around the world. They are located at more than 100 university chapters that we are affiliated with as AIST. In addition, we have a variety of internship and scholarship awards. We also provide a series of university grants to teaching professionals to help with their curriculum development and with their research. We also provide funding for technology training and plant tours and a variety of recruiting events to help connect the academic industry with the steel industry so that we can advance the mission of the foundation. We have also what's called the UIRR, which is our University and Industry Relations Roundtable. Typically, it would meet twice a year in person to help connect academia with the university to ensure that we're in alignment with each other with respect to our mutual goals and objectives. Now, in particular for internships, just a little data set. The AIST Foundation has been sponsoring intern scholarship programs for about 15 years. And with this type of program, we provide a scholarship, currently $6,000 per year, in addition to a paid internship. So all of the candidates who are selected to participate in this program would go through a paid internship at a steel-related company. And to date, we've put 188 students through the program. They've been sent off to 93 different steel-related facilities. And the average award thus far is just over $5,600 per recipient. The reason we love this program so much is that it's really been one of the most successful tools to help fulfill our mission to connect the next generation with the steel industry. And you can see that just about 62% of every intern that's gone through the program has gone on to full-time employment in our steel industry. So if we were playing baseball, we'd be in the Hall of Fame right now with those numbers. But we take it very seriously, and the foundation does a great job at vetting all the applicants for this program to ensure that we select those that are most suited, most qualified, and those that we believe would find success with a career in the steel industry. So when a situation like COVID comes along that has the ability to set us back, it's important that we come together as an industry and share these insights. And that's really what we're trying to do today. We did poll the audience a little bit with a couple of questions. And I want to show you those. Before we get there, the foundation is now awarding about $730,000 US on an annual basis in fulfillment of these programs. We have a goal to get to $1 million within just a few short years. So by 2022, we hope that through fundraising that we can increase our awards to $1 million and up. And we hope to continue to grow as we go forward in support of the steel industry. Now, to those preview questions, we polled our audience and we asked, how has COVID-19 impacted your company's plans for a summer student internship or co-op program? Very few of you said no significant impact, 6%. However, 59% of you said we are indeed modifying our program, and another 35% said we're just unable to host or place students this year. A similar but slightly different question: how has COVID-19 impacted enrollment in your student internship or upcoming co-op program? 53% of you said we will have fewer students this year due to COVID. And then almost 30% said they're not going to have any students this year. And we want to now get into some of that discussion and figure out what we can do about that and hopefully improve everyone's potential for this summer's activities. To our audience out there, you can submit your questions via the Q&A function on your monitor. We'll do our best to get to them and hope to add value for your time today. So with that, let's get started with the Q&A. And I'm going to ask our panelists today to give me one word. And I'm going to say, in one word, how would you describe the steel industry today, given the COVID-19 situation, and from your personal perspective? So let's see, Morgan Ferguson, Steel Dynamics. What's your one word for that?
I would say resilient.
Resilient, very good, thank you. How about Mark Brooks at Nucor? Mark, what say you?
Flexible.
Resilient and flexible. Okay, Joanne at Hatch. How about your word, Joanne?
I'd say agile.
Interesting, agile. Okay, we'll stay with Hatch. Ian Cameron, how about you?
State of flux.
Come on now. Did you hyphenate those? Because that's three words. All right, hyphenated. State of flux. I love the engineers. We can't help ourselves sometimes. Okay, Karen Arnold, AK Steele. What would be your one word?
I would say dynamic.
Dynamic. All right, and to round us out, James Salisbury, Colorado School of Mines. What say you?
I would say solid.
Solid. All right. I love the optimism. It epitomizes who we are as an industry. Resilient, flexible, agile, state of flux, dynamic, and solid. Okay, a great way to get us started. And we're going to build off of this. So now as we go forward, let's actually create a little bit of a foundation for our conversation today. So in a normal year, absent of COVID, tell us about the overall size of your company's internship program in a normal year. So how many participants, typical duration, where do you put your students location-wise? I'm going to go back to Canada here. So Joanne Royce from Hatch, can you give us a little overview of your standard?
Yes. Yep. So I'll use numbers from our last year, fiscal year. So we had about 450 co-op students hired in North America. And that's, in addition to that, we had 171 new grads hired last year. And almost 60 of those new grads were conversion students. So we're really, we really like to hire in our co-op students after they've been with us. The duration is the majority of them are 4 months co-op terms. So we call them the fall term, the winter term, and then the spring and summer term. Although in certain groups like Ian's group, they like to hire longer term, we call them interns, who are from 12 to 18 months. The locations we hire across Canada and in our locations in the US, but the majority of all the hires are hired into our head office because that's a very large office in Mississauga. And following that, I think it would be the Montreal office that has the next highest volume of candidates. So for example, out of that 171 new grads, about 128 of them were hired in the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area.
Okay, all right, thank you. So let's go to AK Steele. So Karen Arnold, can you give us an overview of your typical year?
Sure, yeah. So we have both a summer internship program as well as a co-op program. They are separate, but they do overlap. And in a typical year, we probably have about 60 interns that participate in our summer program. And it really varies as far as the number by location and by plant, depending on what's really happening at the plant, you know, what projects they have going on, and really what their particular needs at that time. Our typical program over the summer is 10 to 12 weeks. And typically what we have is, you know, a pretty structured program where, you know, every student, when they come on board, they are assigned a buddy and a mentor. They go through a very, you know, thorough training program or process. They are assigned a project that they are responsible for throughout the you know, duration of their summer internship that they are to work on in addition to their day-to-day duties and responsibilities. And we also have like a midpoint review where in midway through their internship, they get some feedback from their hiring manager on what they're doing, you know, things that they can improve upon to make sure that it is a valuable internship and that they're getting what they need out of that. They also, at the end of the internship, have a presentation where they have to present to all the department managers and all the other interns that are participating at that particular location get to sit in on that presentation. And we try and do some fun things as well. We do lunch and learns throughout the summer. We also have a few different social events where they get to do some fun stuff such as bowling or top golf, or they get to go to a ball game, just to kind of make sure that they have an opportunity to have some fun and bond. And then we also require them to do at least one community service type of activity as a group. So it's just a way to hopefully give them a really well-rounded internship. throughout the summer. And then as far as our co-ops, we typically have about 20 per year, and we only typically have those in our larger locations. We work closely with UC, obviously they have a very strong co-op program, and it's right down the street from Middletown, so that's a big one for us. And a lot of those students also, they work sometimes double terms, sometimes single terms, and sometimes they work over the summer as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's hear now from Nucor. Mark, what say you?
Yeah, we have, it's a combination. So that I have direct visibility into that I manage, we have what we call our core school, and these are 8 schools. James is one of the schools that we recruit from for this 8 core schools. And we typically bring in around 80 interns / co-ops through those 8 schools. And they're sent out to all of our steel divisions throughout the United States. Besides that, we also have what we call local recruiting. Nucor is a very decentralized organization, and we allow our divisions or steel mills to recruit locally for talent that comes into those different divisions. So we provide, at a core school level, we provide interns that go around the country, and then those local schools, let's say Tuscaloosa, they may recruit directly from the University of Alabama. So on top of the 80 that I am responsible for, we'll probably bring in another 200 to 300 students, depending on the year, from local universities around the country. And that's a combination of co-ops and internships. I would say majority of our students do internships, so that's 12 to 14 weeks over the summer. But we have some of our facilities like our Yamata plant in outside of Blytheville, Arkansas, that really focus on co-ops. Because of it's a large beam mill, they want students there a little bit longer, so that encompass 12 weeks in the summer and then 1 semester from the university where they'll do their co-op as well. Same thing Karen mentioned, we have a lot of programs during the summer, whether it's the fun activities, there's a game we play where they learn about the steel industry, dollars and tons. There's tours of other facilities. We do what we call intern summits, where we'll bring interns from different product groups together for some fun and then some learning, so that the students get to see not only their mill, they get to see students from other universities, other places in the country, and other product groups, and really form that bond. It's really helped us with retention and conversion in that manner. So it's a great program overall, and we're looking forward to continuing.
Okay, appreciate that overview. So to continue with the audience, we're just assessing what a normal year looks like with regard to a company's internship or co-op program. Again, absent of the COVID crisis situation. So let's now go to Steel Dynamics and Morgan Ferguson.
Every summer, we typically have somewhere around 100 interns. We really focus more on summer internships than co-ops, but if there's a request for a co-op, we certainly do fill that. Our internships typically last about 90 days throughout the summer, and historically 1 in 4 students is hired full-time, just depending on needs at that time. The students are spread out throughout all of our facilities across the country. We recruit at more than 20 schools every fall with a lot of help from our engineering team. And a lot of those individuals are former interns who are now supervisors. So they're able to meet candidates directly and place them right into their own internships if they find someone they like. And like Karen and Mark, we have a lot of programming throughout the summer as well, professional development activities, at a local level, and we've started expanding that and doing some virtual professional development activities last summer just to get the whole group connected regardless of where they are throughout the country. We have some fun and do social activities, and our big event each summer is our intern extravaganza. We bring all first-year interns to our corporate office for 2 days. They get to tour a facility from each of our operating segments, so scrap recycling, steel production, and fabrication. We do a night out and a baseball game. They get to meet our executive team and just learn a little bit more about our company and our culture.
Okay, thank you for that. So we've heard from at least each company out there, but James, I'd like to come to you because you have a sort of a dual hat on here today, not only representing your university, but universities in general, but also the students. So let's stay for a moment with the normal paradigm, absent of COVID. And what would students be doing right now with respect to internship programs?
So, the steel industry is tremendously important to mines. Actually, I think pretty much everybody on this, every organization represented on this call recruits. So at this time, I believe most of our students that were looking to get an internship in the steel industry would already have their summer plans set. And in fact, those that are still moving forward with them, they already have their plans set. There might be a few last minute adjustments that have to be made if an organization has a last minute position that comes open, and we will have students that are looking at those. So some of that activity will be going on, but at this stage, pretty much plans are set. Our partners in the steel industry, they're some of our best recruiting organizations. They're there aggressively in the fall. They've got great hands-on communication with the students. They do a really good job, I think, of meeting with the students and getting the students excited about the industry. So again, at this point, plans would be set. So it's pretty much just those last minute adjustments. But again, it's funny, from the time I've been at Mines, at all of our recruiting seasons, the steel industry have some of our top numbers in terms of any type of on-campus engagement in particular. So at this point, it would all be buttoned up, ready to move forward into the summer.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the steel industry is #1 at Mines, and we'll continue to do our best to maintain that position.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention as well with James is with the conversions, what we try to do is if we've had a really good, let's say, co-op student, we will have them leave with an offer in hand for their next co-op or summer work term. So sometimes they could have been having the offer last August for this summer coming up. And we typically would be hiring a semester in advance of each of the work terms. So exactly, it's all done. Hiring.
I think having that peace of mind, if you're anybody, let alone a student, would be very helpful and allow you to stay focused on your academics at hand during the semester without having to worry about what you're going to do to advance your career development. Okay, I want to stay, James, with you a little bit, still staying with the student perspective here. Let's now introduce COVID. Boom, COVID's here, it's upon us. What has been the student perspective thus far with respect to their summer internship program? Has it been impacted, and can you share a little insight there?
Well, I'll share some numbers first. It's interesting to see the survey that was done at the beginning of this call. Those numbers are very much in line with what we're seeing. We do an internship poll with our students every year, and the data that we received back from our students was very, very close. We had about 58% of the students, this was about 2 weeks ago, but 58% of the students, as far as they knew, their internship was moving forward. Now that could be remotely, that could be with pushback start dates, but yeah, so it's very close, and that's also close to the numbers that I've seen on one of our industry organizations, which is NACE, the National Association of College and Employers. Also, those numbers are very similar. So based on what we're seeing from this call, I don't think it's that dramatically different. Now, from the students' perspective, I think it's been very unsettling. I think as it has been for all of us, but with the students in particular, the vast majority of which are younger folks, and they've never experienced anything but a roaring economy, right, for their kind of conscious, somewhat adult lives. So this is not something they've seen before, not something they're used to, and you throw on top of that, by the way, your last 4 weeks of class are now going to be done virtually. You can't go back to your labs and complete your projects in the lab. So it's been really tough. Again, personally, the interactions I've had with our students and just talking to other folks in the Career Center, the students, our students, we've always said they are very resilient, and I do believe they are. So I've been surprised at how positive they've been. But I will also say, while we've seen an increase in employer engagement through the Career Center, which is to be expected, we've also seen a bit of a decrease in student engagement as well. So I think, again, that just speaks to it's a tough time. Students are trying to figure out how to get through their finals. I know we mentioned there were students taking finals today. It's finals week at Mines. So, it's tough to make all these adjustments at once, and let alone looking towards your future. Has been difficult. But again, the students that we have engaged with, that we're having these conversations with, they're positive. They're looking to move forward.
All right. Well, I think it goes with our industry that optimism is an essential part of our success, and it's good to see the students remaining optimistic given this unprecedented situation. So, all right, we're going to stay now. We're in the COVID era, and I'd like to hear from the panelists that if you're planning to proceed with your company's internship or co-op program, how are you actually modifying that program? In other words, how are you going to innovate through this crisis? Now, we are introducing a polling question for our audience. Who are you, basically, is the purpose of this first call, so that we can follow up with you later on. So I'm going to ask our audience to take a moment and just briefly tell us who you are, and then we're going to move on. So coming back to the question here, if you're moving ahead, how are you modifying that program? How are you going to innovate your way through this crisis? So I want to come to Nucor here first with this question. Mark Brooks, can you give us some insight on some of the changes that you've had to implement?
Yeah, what we did is we had a couple different task force at our executive level in our corporate headquarters in Charlotte. And what they did is they gave guidance to our divisions so that our divisions can make individual choices, but we tried to stay connected to find out as a whole what we're doing. And for the ones that continued, they had a couple different options. What they're doing is we have some that are pushing back the start date. So students will be coming that would come maybe on May 15th, may start on June 1st, and they may extend that time at the back end when it's allowed. We have some that have started virtual training prior to the start date, so that students, for instance, if they're working in a melt shop, there's some things that they can learn, that they may learn in those 2 weeks at May 15th before that June 1st start date, that they're learning those things virtually. And that came into play, with housing already secured and all these different things came into play, how we could push those start dates back a little bit. But we do have some divisions that are maybe in some of our more rural locations that have not had the same impact, that are starting at the time that they wanted to start before. And so we have a varying degree of decisions, but they're all being made with the guidance from our corporate office, but those decisions are made at the local level. And I think that's where they should be made, because every single division and locally, they know what's going on where they are better than we do. And so we give an overall template and let them make that decision what best suits that division, keeping in mind safety for the teammates, safety for the students. We don't want a student having to travel a different distance than they would in this day and time. We don't want to put them at risk. And so we are keeping those things in consideration as we move forward with those internships.
Okay, so Nucor, a very large company, diverse locations, multiple states, countries, interesting perspectives. So let's now go to AK Steel. Karen, can you give us some insight on how you're dealing with your program this year?
Sure, yeah. Well, we made the very difficult decision to cancel our summer internship program. And really, it was a decision we tried to make as early as possible. Once we really saw the scope of COVID-19, the pandemic, and really what impact it was having, not only on the economy, but just on employment. We really looked at the situation as continuing to escalate, and the uncertainty of that, as well as the number one, safety and health of our employees was significantly important. And then we also, honestly, we're going through some transition. We just were acquired in March by Cleveland Cliffs. And so we've got a lot of things happening all at once. And because of those, because of that, we just made the decision it was probably better to just cancel the internship. Now we are just pausing the co-op program. We do intend to continue with the co-op program in the fall. And those students, we did communicate with them and said, hey, we're just going to kind of pause this, put go on leave, and hopefully bring those students back in the fall. Because we certainly want to continue to, keep that candidate pipeline and our student pipeline as much as possible without too much of a blip.
Okay, thank you for that. By the way, is the company going to still be going forward as AK Steel? Will that be the official name?
Yes, as far as I know, it's AK Steel, a Cleveland Cliffs company is how it's going to be presented.
Right, thank you. All right, so continuing on with our conversation here on innovating through the crisis with respect to our internship and co-op programs. So now let's go to Steel Dynamics. Morgan, can you give us some insight on how you're amending your programs?
Yeah, our leadership team was really passionate about honoring the commitments that were previously made. So we have about 50 interns that we're still bringing on board. I had my first orientation yesterday. So we are moving all interns to remote work for at least the month of May. Our targeted date to bring them on site is June 1st, but as Mark alluded to, the situation's different in every state. So for those who can safely transition June 1st, they will. Others might have to be postponed a little bit. So we did our best not to relocate anyone during that remote work time, and then we will relocate once they're able to work on site. So we mailed out all of the paperwork, laptops, everything they would need to work from home. We sent that a packet to each student directly, and then their new hire orientation and all of their initial onboarding is taking place via Zoom. And I found that because the students were already doing schooling on Zoom or online, they were really well prepared. They have that proper Zoom etiquette. They hop on the meeting and they instantly mute themselves, and they're already up to speed kind of on what to expect with that remote aspect.
Yeah, we're learning from them as well, I think, on
Yeah.
the platform for certain. Okay, I want to go to Hatch with the same question. I want to hear certainly from both Joanne and Ian on how are you innovating through this crisis and dealing with your internship program. So Joanne,
Okay,
you want to take this
sure.
off?
Yeah. So first of all, we didn't cancel or shorten any of our winter co-op and interns that we had on board. They're still here if they're going further in the year, and we didn't shorten any. But just like Karen, we wanted to act very quickly with our decisions to be respectful for the summer students. And also, COVID was very rapidly changing. We were first considered essential services in the engineering consulting area, and then that changed and everyone needed to work from home. And Hatch is a global organization, and while we do have the flexibility to work from home, we've never had to sort of get ready for having our global population across the world working from home. So there was a lot of background work coming with respect to that, and Hatch did a great job on that. But really, it was looking at, our Hatch manifesto to guide our decisions, like do no harm, safety first. Wanted to make certain the students would be safe. We also didn't want a decision we made impact the students' ability to graduate on time. So we were in touch with the universities about that and schools. And so once we determined that it wouldn't have a negative impact on their graduation dates and things like that, we really did look at the summer program. So we unfortunately had to cancel that. For the longer term interns, we delayed the start dates of that, and we'll look at it. And why we didn't do a shorter term is really our co-ops and students are students that come in and work for us in the 4-month terms or even the 16 to 18 months. The feedback is always when they leave that it's like a full-time job, it's like a permanent job. And we really didn't want to have them have any less of a robust experience. So if you consider changing our workforce to virtually and the managers getting involved in that, managing their permanent employees from home and managing client relationships and everything, to add on top of that mentoring and taking the dedicated time in order to get students up to speed with everything. They work on client work, on projects, robust projects. We made the decision to actually to cancel the program for the summertime. So we had a very big program. The hiring managers reached out to the students personally to talk to them. Our HR human resource advisors followed up with the students with a confirmation letters, and we assured the students that they're going to be first in line for future opportunities. And again, we wanted students to know as soon as possible so that they could, make certain that they were going to be okay, either with other alternates or talking to their schools to make certain that that didn't have a negative impact on them. And as I said, we're going to be looking at the longer term, delaying them. Our new grads as well, due to start in May, are going to be delayed for a little bit later in the year. So we're going to be making a decision about that. The same thing with our hiring for the fall. We're looking at that now because now is when we really start, reaching out and getting our students involved as far as hiring them. So we have a lot of decisions that are still in flux, as Ian said, the steel industry, those are the terms that he used. So, and it is constantly changing. So we don't even know if we're going to be mandated to have to work from our homes in September, considering if there's going to be a second wave and things like that. So that's kind of where we're.
Yeah, I can just add a little bit of personal touch. So we had two AIST scholars that were to come to my group for 8 or 9 months. So we took the time, one, not to just send them a letter. We waited until we got our messaging correct. And then myself and my 2 senior engineers reached out to the individuals involved to assess their personal situations and how they would move forward. One of them is fortunate enough to be a software programmer, so he's going to be working from home for a previous employer. The other is kind of like, I'm sure James can relate to this, what am I going to do all summer? And so we've kind of connected him to some technical literature. Both, in fact, there are 3 students that were coming to our group, and they all, we said, September looks like, we might bring you on board. And they all said, yes, we'll come. So we're going to keep in contact with them. The third one, who's not an AIST scholar, the university, it's my alma mater, McGill, offered a special program to help get the requirements for graduation through some remote mentoring by our senior engineers. So I think one of your questions is about culture. It gave us an opportunity to project culture and certainly to be empathetic towards the students' needs and to listen and in a small way to try and help.
Yeah.
And Ron, I'll add, we did have some division that did cancel their internships, but what we did, because we understood that this is income for the students, number one. It's also an opportunity to, what I call, have an extended interview for maybe a full-time job. And so we did, for our underclassmen, certainly what Morgan said and Ian said is, for any underclassmen, we already gave them an internship offer for next year. So you already have a guaranteed internship. If you were good enough for us this year, you're good enough for us next year. And we've already had students accept that internship. But on top of that, we did give them some financial compensation and said, hey, we know you were going to earn some money this year. Here's that money. Maybe not the same money you would make, but we did compensate every single student that we had to cancel. And then for every senior, we're going to give them a full-time interview. We can't guarantee an offer, but we're going to guarantee that we're going to do a full-time interview, probably in August, September timeframe. Once we know whether it's virtual, we don't know if it's going to be virtual yet. Like you said, things are still changing, but we did want to make sure that we put our best foot forward with those students that we did have to cancel. A great example is Seattle, Washington. We all know that was almost the landing point of this, and so we just didn't feel comfortable bringing students out to Seattle from around the country. But we did make those mitigating factors known, and then we did offer students the opportunity to convert, interview for conversion, full-time offer, and offer to come back next year.
Okay. All right. We're starting to see some good question and answer or questions come in from our audience. But before I try to get to some of those, James Salisbury, Colorado School of Mines, how have you been innovating through the crisis here? Can you give us some insight there?
Sure. Yeah, we've quickly had to adapt, like everybody, to the virtual platforms. So typically, again, at this time of year, plans are set for the most part. We have a couple events. We have kind of a just-in-time virtual career fair that we do for organizations looking for last-minute hires and students looking for last-minute internships. So, but really outside of that event, we really slow down in terms of employer engagement because it's very difficult for us to get any student interest. The students are focused on finals and getting those projects done. And again, most of them have already secured their internships if that's what they're doing in the summer. So we did pivot and we actually held a number of virtual info sessions throughout the month of April and really ramped up our employer engagement where we could. We also, obviously the messaging to students has changed. For a student that's looking for an internship in September for the following summer, they've got lots of time. If somebody is looking for an internship now, it's, you kind of have to narrow that net. You maybe can't have quite as many requirements on your job search as you typically would. So really just kind of coming together and formulating a message for our students, also finding ways for employers to engage virtually, really, and then just doing anything we can help to facilitate that. In fact, my very first day working from home, I set up an interview for a student and some folks at Nucor. So, really and that's something that normally we would never be doing, right? But it's just making those quick adjustments. Also, I think there's a great point where and I think it was Ann, I believe, that said, well, what am I going to do all summer? Working on some of that messaging for students as well, because that's actually some feedback that we've gotten from our employer partners, where employers are going to understand that if you didn't have an internship this summer or your internship got canceled, recruiters, hiring managers, they're going to know, like they were in the same position that you were. What really can help you differentiate as a student, for our students on the call, is you are going to be asked that question. If you didn't get an internship, well, what did you do this summer? And think about what can you do? What can you say besides, I watched Netflix and played a lot of video games, right? Which I'm sure is probably what a lot of us feel like we want to do. But think about that. How can you grow, even if it's, doing woodworking or taking a cooking class, reading technical manuals, getting involved in any type of project through your school, like anything that you can do to really help sell this time for yourself as a candidate. And getting that messaging out to students has been a focus as well.
Okay. All right,
I think
thank you.
that's great, James. I mean, we see a lot in the news about even high school students who have used 3D printing to make shields. And I mean, it's like, hire those,
Totally.
put their name in the database because really it's amazing what some of the students have done to help the situation. So absolutely get involved in those types of activities. And that's a great thing to have a well-rounded kind of a student. It isn't just all about marks. It's like, what did you do during a situation like this, right? That's great.
I completely agree. And also for the students out there, it is super discouraging. You will be discouraged, but keep looking. There are opportunities out there. Companies are hiring, and I'd also say it's a great indication for our organizations out there. If you see a student that's on this call or a student that's out aggressively looking right now, that's a resilient person, right? That's a resilient candidate right there that despite adversity is going to be out there looking. So, just keep that up.
Well, I think with any crisis, true leadership runs towards it, not away from it. And we confront it head on, and there's opportunity there for those that are willing to take that tact. I want to try to look at some of these chat questions that are coming into us. One is maybe not so much a question, but more of a statement. As a current student at Missouri S&T, I can say nearly every single summer internship for upperclassmen has been canceled. Very few internships are being modified instead of outright dropped. So there's a real chance to pick up new students for internships in the steel industry if the steel companies are aggressive in their outreach. So it's not just us that have to retract some of our programs, but there's certainly opportunity there for us. There are a couple questions about, are there any integrated companies hosting internships? Now we do have AK on the panel as a both integrated and mini mill based facility. We're going to definitely be following up with all the companies represented that are listening in today and do our best to try to find homes for anybody that's still seeking an internship.
Ron, one of the messaging that we had in ours was that should situations change, that we would contact the students. And the situations, as it is with everybody on the call, are very local. So we don't know, but I mean, I think some of the students would even welcome, half a term if we can fit it in. So I suspect that some students will be invited to come, because I don't think this is going to be. We don't think we're going to be locked down for the whole summer. Certainly hope not.
Well, like you said, day by day, and we got to adjust course if need be in order to hit the target, and that never stops after launch. Okay, another question that came in here: are students given an option to defer their internship to a later term, both for the firms that have canceled summer interns and the ones that have decided to pursue their internship program? Would anybody like to address that one? Do you giving the students an option to come next year?
The Hatch answer is yes.
Yeah, so at Hatch, what we've done is we're actually going to be reaching out to each of those students, to similar to what Mark was saying, in that to find out when their next availability is, because we won't even post the jobs then. We will just have that. We interviewed them, they were hired, we'll have them come in for the next opportunity that we have available at Hatch. And the same things with the new grads. Mark mentioned about how they would for sure get in to have even though they lost their opportunity, let's say this summer, but they're going to graduate in May, then to make certain that they've at least had the opportunity to interview with the hiring managers at this point, as as something of value to those students that unfortunately weren't able to come with Hatch this spring summer session. So I think that's one thing that we're really key about. We have them. We're really going to keep on top of making certain we're connected with the summer students too. We have a program in place that we're developing where we're going to sort of reach out to them, like from HR. That's not counting the business. As Ian said, they've got, kind of almost like a buddy system set up. But from the campus, what we're going to do is try and offer some key learning or value. We when they come on board, one of the programs that we have is a lunch and learn. So they learn about different parts of the business. They learn about even things that could help them in their career search, life skills, time management type of thing. So we're going to create that program to go out to add value to the students that we hired, and it's also a way for us to keep in touch with them, but also provide them with information that could be of value to them. So that's kind of what we're hoping to keep in touch with all our students and be able to immediately hire them as soon as the opportunities arise, and as long as the timing fits with their schedules as well.
And Ron, we did that with our co-ops, especially for the ones that would be doing summer, fall. We reached out to each student and said, hey, can you go back to school in the fall and then delay your co-op starting in January and run through next summer, and maybe better timing for you to be on a division's plant starting in the spring semester in January. And so for those students that could get to school in the fall, that were planning to internship in the fall, we did push those co-ops back. And so they can continue their schooling. And so that worked out, and students were flexible with that. And so they didn't really lose anything. It's just, like you said, it was a delay. We communicated that and reached out to each co-op student that had that opportunity.
That's great.
So I see one of our questions here is related to the obstacles that exist. I believe it was a student was referencing, hey, I don't feel comfortable going to fill in the blank place for my internship. Perhaps it was a hotspot area for COVID. The parental influence could come into play here, that a parent may not want their child to be traveling during an uncertain era. So let's look at some of the pitfalls or the obstacles that we've been wrestling with for those that are having a modified program. So clearly we have things like the compressed time frame. And of course, the government always has a say in what we can and can't do in a situation like this. So, Morgan, could you give us some insight from Steel Dynamics' perspective on some of the obstacles that you're maybe having wrestled with or still?
Obviously, working remote is not easy, especially with interns who at times require more direction just because they're new and they're still learning. So that was a pretty significant challenge that we presented to our supervisors, that we are asking you to figure out how to make this work so that we can still honor the internships. We did give all the students the option to not follow through with the internship, and nobody turned us down. So they all still wanted to come and do their internship. And as I mentioned previously, they are working remote, at least for the time being, until their local government determines that it's safe to go back to work, and as a company that we agree to that as well. So it's new for all of us trying to figure out how to work remote. It's new for me personally, and I know it's a challenge for our supervisors. So I'm trying to provide as much programming as possible to fill in between projects. We do a book club every summer, so every student gets a copy of the same book, professional development. So that's something meaningful that they can pick up while they're waiting for their supervisor to hop on a Zoom call to answer their questions about their project. Or we have just some other virtual trainings and webinars to help the supervisors supplement, because we do recognize that it's challenging for them to figure out how a metallurgist can get 40 hours of work from home when they thought they were going to be in a lab or on a production floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
from our side, we struggle with our incumbent, because we have incumbent students working, and but they suffer the same issues that everybody else does. They're on their own, many of them are living alone. So so we have a contact time at 9 o'clock every morning. The team gets together. There's about 25 of us, and students are included. We've used it to master Microsoft Teams and learn tips about how to negotiate with that. And we share a bit of humor. And I think one of the popular ones was everybody donated a photograph from, had to be less than 5 years old to see who could pick out who in the crowd. I had hair back then, so it was more interesting. But I think that the same sort of contact issues are there. One of our students particularly expressed concerns on riding public transit, so we made early arrangements for him to work from home even before the lockdown. So I think you just need to treat the students just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Brooks, any particular pitfalls or obstacles that came your way?
Yeah, I would share the sentiment that both Ian and Morgan said. We were really concerned with traveling. For a student that had to get on a plane, that was going to get on the plane before an internship, we made sure to talk through that and what that would look like, because we still don't know how they, with the schedules operating a lot differently for our airlines and things like that. We had to take those things into consideration. We considered doing a 2-week quarantine, so bringing students in, keeping them at their apartments for 2 weeks. Some divisions may do that, some may not do that. We had parental talks. So what we have, I think Morgan said it, we have engineering leads at our school. So our engineers go out to our schools. For instance, at Mines, we have Alan, who's a former grad at Mines. He goes out and helps us recruit. And so he may have a conversation with a student because they form that bond, and gets on the phone with a parent. I'm a parent, I have 3 children, and I would have those same concerns. And so we made sure to talk through those. If we had a student that said they were not comfortable, we did not hold it against them. And we did offer them again for next year. And I don't think we had any of those to date, but we still had that as a policy. Hey, let's not hold this against a student. We have to be mindful that they are fearful. This is a brand new experience for them and a lot of us at the same time. So those were the biggest things. And then, of course, like you said, public transportation was a big one. Fortunately for us, a lot of our divisions are not anywhere where there's public transportation. They're really rural. And so you need to be able to drive on your own to get there, or carpool. So we didn't really have that as an obstacle. But we tried to listen, and I think our task force really helped us identify a lot of the things that we may see and try to have a solution for it, whether it's something that we wanted to do or we didn't want to do. The ultimate thing was, how can we keep every single teammate and student safe? And if we didn't find a way to do that, and we're operating, so we have found ways to do that. But if we had that obstacle, we made sure that we kept safety first, and that helped us in our decision-making process.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So we're rapidly nearing the end of our time, and I'm going to ask for our next poll question to come up on the screen, which is going to relate to your anticipated hiring this fall. So as a company, What changes are you anticipating regarding your fall recruiting? Are you putting a freeze on hiring? Do you think you're still going to go after it? And let's just segue to our panel discussion here. What changes are you contemplating for your fall recruiting? Let's hear James. Let's go to you from the student perspective. So, are you anticipating a different fall come September with regard to recruiting and hiring your recent grads?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at Mines, on-campus recruiting is a big component of our recruiting. We have one of the largest career fairs. Actually, we have the largest career fair in the Rocky Mountain region. There'll be 350 organizations, 4,000 attendees. I mean, there's no way to social distance with those numbers. So we're exploring all of our options. We have not made a determination yet, but we are looking at virtual options, at least for our fall event. And I think we're just going to have to continue to strengthen our resources in that virtual space. We've had pretty good luck with the virtual info sessions so far, so continuing to make those offerings. I think that's a quick bright point that might have come out of this is I think we're actually going to be able to be more effective in that regard moving forward, even past the COVID-19. The virtual options, using them to supplement our on-campus options. But yeah, but for the fall, I think it's going to be very different. I think that the one thing that we know is going to be different is the method of engagement. There's going to be less face-to-face. There's going to be less on campus. So that's our job right now, is figuring out how do we provide that same value through virtual platforms. And there's some great platforms out there. There's some great tools, and I think in particular, if this is hopefully just a blip on the radar, and we're only dealing with this for the fall or for the year, I think we can maintain our level of engagement virtually without losing a lot of speed in terms of our relationships with the school, the students, and our employer partners. So.
Thank you, James. So Karen Arnold, AK Steel, what changes are you contemplating now for your fall recruiting?
Well, certainly, depending on really how this thing evolves, I think it's still unfolding. We anticipate we will be cutting back on campus recruiting. We anticipate we'll be attending a lot more virtual events. We're looking at hosting some virtual information sessions. I talked to our recruiting team last week, kind of brainstorming on different ideas and things we could do, not just for the fall, but even this summer, where we could continue to engage with students that we are, maybe we have canceled the program, but we certainly are still very interested in, those students and continuing to develop relationships with them. So we're looking at doing some type of happy hours, like ask the plant manager, have some kind of fun, creative events that will engage the student, and they can learn a little bit more about who we are as an organization, whether it's position specific or departmentally specific. But we're definitely looking at lots of different things that we can do where we can embrace technology a little bit more. We recently invested in a texting platform called Text Recruit this year, and even just using that kind of technology where we're texting information out or using social media. So I think we're really doing what we can to leverage technology, and that's really, I think, how hopefully we'll be able to continue to connect with students and continue to build our brand.
Okay. The quick look at the poll to question number 2 about changes in anticipated hiring this fall. Early results were about 41%, said about the same amount of hiring, but almost half, 47%, expected to have a reduction in their hiring. So it's certainly going to be a competitive field for everyone. Let's hear from Morgan. What do you anticipate for your fall hiring and recruiting efforts? Steel Dynamics?
Yeah, to be honest, it's hard to even look out that far. I mean, we're kind of seeing what the schools are doing and what adjustments they're making. I've already seen some universities are coming in with announcing virtual career fairs for the fall. My guess is that it will be virtual heavy, very limited travel, but we will certainly still continue recruiting and preparing for summer internships in 2021.
Okay, so Joanne Hatch or Ian, would either one of you care to share your expectations for the
Maybe
fall?
I can go first. And bigger picture, I think our targets won't change. We still see the value in bringing students in, and we understand it's a long process. I would say that we'll of course, we have always used virtual tools, so we'll just amp them up for the recruiting season. But I think we'll go ahead as planned. Our big issue with bringing new hires and students on is just to have the appropriate amount of onboarding and contact and being able to give them the experience we want. So we've always kind of kept the number to what we think we can manage, and it really doesn't matter about the crisis or not, because too many, we just can't manage them and give them the training that they need. And Joanne, over to you.
Yeah, we do have a very large contingent of students that come in. So yes, we want to give them a robust kind of experience. The silver lining, like James mentioned, and Karen and Morgan, is that we have technology that we can start to embrace and use a lot more. So even doing our Hatch information sessions, we would typically go to campus for that. And last year I had actually wanted to expand out to do some webinars where we could target, like, we hire like a large number of civil and mechanical engineers. And so it just allows us to really target in on those groups and like have a session where they can ask questions, what it's like, what kind of career paths are there at Hatch, that type of thing. So I'm really looking forward to trying those out. Some of our groups do go to the career fairs and others don't. We found that the Hatch info sessions were better and more targeted, so we've done that. You know, Ian mentioned about onboarding. We wanted to make certain that we did onboarding. We had a huge contingent of students that were going to come in. So, you know, getting them laptops, getting their security set up for them, getting their homes. Did they even have a place to work from home? You know, how are they going to do any, like, communication? Do they have a cell phone? You know, getting all the telecom set up. That was going to be another very large deployment. But we also piloted, just because of virtual, as everything is a virtual onboarding program, with the permanent hires that were coming on board. So we've got that kind of under our belt to see how that works now. So the next time the students comes in, we could do that. We did with our students very similar. I think it was Karen who mentioned it, but they do a student showcase in Mississauga that runs over 2 days, and there's like 19 teams, and they talk about all the projects that they worked on, and it's so great. And we did it the first time through Microsoft Teams, a live event, and it worked just lovely. And there were like 100 participants like watching the presentations. And the nice thing about that is, if you couldn't go, if Ian couldn't go for some reason and he wanted to see his team and what they presented, he could go and click on the link later and watch it. So we did all kinds of really neat things, like in the moment of having to get things done. And that's what being agile is all about.
One thing I would add, which is maybe a silver lining, is we're kind of spoiled, and we tended to look at the universities within 500 miles of where we work. But when we go virtual, it doesn't matter. We can look.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Probably.
Okay, so unfortunately, we've come to the end of our window, but I want to give Mark Brooks and Nucor an opportunity to respond here. So last word, Mark, what do you anticipate for your fall hiring season to look like here?
We've raised our hand to a lot of our university partners to help them pilot some of the virtual platforms. I really think it's going to be virtual. It'll be brand new for us. This is something that we haven't embarked upon. We really like those face-to-face conversations and things like that. So I'll hopefully be leading the team into understanding that virtual may be the way to go. And so it'll be a learning process for us, but we're willing to do it.
Okay, so I do want to mention that after the webinar, we're going to be reaching out to our audience to inquire if any of you can actually accommodate any more students in your summer programs. Our goal is to try to basically recruit as many students into the industry as possible. We have some students. Hopefully we'll have some more available slots, and our job is to connect those two together. I do want to point out that the University and Industry Relations Roundtable will meet next at the end of August, August 31st. This will be an in-person event. It'll be in conjunction with AIST Tech in Cleveland, Ohio, here in the United States, and you're all invited to participate in that program. We're planning for it to be live. If we have to develop a contingency plan, we're going to go virtual with it, and we'll make it work. Also, I would encourage you to stay in touch with us at AIST. Watch for announcements on upcoming AIST webinars. We anticipate having a variety of programs, primarily from a technical perspective on advancing steel technology and in fulfillment of our mission, which is to advance the technical development, the production, the processing, and application of iron and steel. I really want to thank our presenters today for their time and for your effort to prepare for this event and for sharing your expertise with us today. I also want to thank you, our audience, for joining this AIST webinar today. Wherever you may be in the world, I encourage everyone to stay safe, stay productive, and of course, please stay well. Thank you, and so long for now.